A new bipartisan bill would level the most devastating sanctions yet against Iran for its suspect nuclear program. This after talks ended Wednesday with no sign of any progress. The bill was introduced by Republican Congressman Chairman Ed Royce of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the top Democrat on that panel, Congressman Eliot Engel. And they are here today jointly. It's great to see a Democrat and a Republican together doing anything. And this, first of all, against Iran. But before we go there, I want to ask you quickly about the announcement today from Secretary Kerry in Rome about Syria. First to you, Mr. Chairman, is this enough? Because you have in the past called for arming the Syrian rebels, the Syrian opposition. Is it enough to give them non-lethal aid?
Well, let me make an observation, and part of this, I think, is the work of our ranking member, Eliot Engel, who was the author of the Syrian Accountability Act. His pressure to make certain that we don't have a situation where Iran, as you know right now, is trying to prop up Assad. Iran has forces on the ground assisting Assad, as does Hezbollah. It is his judgment that we should be pushing harder, and I agree with him. And I think that at this point, you see the administration coming around today and saying, okay, we can give non-military aid, but aid that will help the Syrian Opposition Council, aid that will help the Free Syrian Army. And this will counterbalance Iranian support there, and I think will expedite the time frame in which Assad is removed, and will also include the United States with Europe in our efforts to work with civil society in Syria in order to repair the damage and cut off Iran's last Arab ally that exists in the Middle East.
Well, Congressman Engel, you've been leading the way on this. Is this step enough?
Well, I think that we have to incrementally build. And by the way, Andrea, I'm glad you mentioned the bipartisanship. This is the most bipartisanship you'll find on Capitol Hill these days. And I'm happy to be a part of it. I think that foreign policy, where possible, should be bipartisan. We all know that Iran's a bad player. We know that they are the leading supporter of terrorism around the world. We know that Assad is a big Iran ally, that if Assad in Syria were to fall, that it certainly would be a blow to the Iranian regime as well. Assad has murdered his own people, 70,000 people. He has displaced about 750,000 Syrians, and the humanitarian crisis among the Syrian people is just awful. So we need to do, in my opinion, everything we can to get him out of Syria as quickly as possible. And I think what Secretary Kerry announced is a good first step, and I commend Secretary Kerry for it. But I do think that ultimately we are going to have to supply some kind of weapons to the Syria Free Army, and I will be introducing legislation next week to enable us to do so.
And finally, Chairman Royce, the Iran sanctions bill, do you think that will get through Congress?
I do think so, and I think that the members of the House and the Senate on both sides of the aisle certainly are very, very concerned about the attempts to miniaturize a weapon, the attempts to develop a three-stage ICBM in Iran, and at the same time the fact that the centrifuges, continue to spin. And so in light of that, we have seen times in our history when sanctions really worked effectively. One of them was the bipartisan work done on South Africa under apartheid, which not only changed the government there, but also put an end to the atomic weapon that had been produced by the government in South Africa. The apartheid government gave up that weapon. I think if we can move forward with these particular sanctions, which are focused on additional pressure on the central bank and on hard currency, reducing the time frame for governments to wean themselves off of Iranian petroleum. As you know, they're reducing every month the amount of exports out of Iran, and that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the mullahs to come to the table to compromise. And lastly, what we do to focus on human rights abusers and to assist in that area and asset freezes, I think all of that is important.
Well, we have to leave it there. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you both very much.